Hello there, you're very welcome along. It is busy in the world of golf right now, not least in Golf Weekly. We have a very special guest coming up. He is an Open Championship legend. The R&A are putting together a pretty cool idea at the weekend. More details on that to come. But suffice to say, we have as good an Open player as there is coming up on the podcast very, very shortly. Unless you have three majors, frankly, and you just don't get on the podcast. That's the new rule. We have with us Peter Lowry. Hello.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
We have Nathan Murphy. Hello to you.
How are you?
Jon Davenport. Hello.
Hey, lads.
Do we reveal now who's on?
I think we're not doing this for suspense reasons. Let's be honest. We're doing it because we've no confidence that the technology is going to work. That means he will actually be on.
It's true. There's a good chance we won't manage to connect here with Tom Watson. But if we do, then happy days. Tom Watson coming up on the podcast. This is exciting.
This is, it's incredibly exciting. My first Open Championship was Turnberry 2009. And actually the one piece of sports memorabilia, I should get it actually, it's upstairs. The only piece of sports memorabilia I have is this lovely photograph of Ailsa Craig, the big rock out in the is it the Irish Sea? When you're in Scotland, do they still call it the Irish Sea? Or is it the North Sea up there?
The North Sea, I think.
Is it the North Sea up there?
Isn't it disputed? Yeah, there's a debate over the
disputed. Let's not get into that part of it. But of that big rock, which you see when you look past the Turnberry Lighthouse, and it's signed by Tom Watson and Stuart Sink.
Wow.
I don't know if it's worth much, but yeah. So
Stuart Sink, the fellow who shot Bambi.
Well, I've still never seen a media centre quite like what Turnberry was like in the 5 minutes after Tom Watson missed the putt before the playoff. There were literally grown men in tears at what had just happened. As was I.
Me too.
Yeah. It was very hard to watch. I don't know if we start with that with Tom.
You've won 5 Open Championships, making you the most successful American player of all time. But I want to talk about that missed putt.
And when you're done with that, can you chat about Phil?
Yeah.
And if we have time at the end, we'll try and get to all the great stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he is just a legend. So we'll see. I mean, we're trying to do this via Zoom and via phone calls, and who knows how it all works. So it may happen, it may not happen. More details about what the R&A are doing at the weekend to come. Let's touch on some of last week's podcast then. So I said I would get to tweets. I've spent a lot of time going through tweets, and it's fair to say one man is being celebrated really in the tweets. That is Padraig Harrington, who people loved and thought he was amazing, which he was, to be fair. So the general tone of the tweets, Pitchmark10 says, your best ever podcast to date. I actually listened to it twice, such was the quality. Padraig Harrington, excellent, especially around CHS, max effort. David334, Padraig mentioned there were 735,000 combinations out of a pool of 24 players with 8 picks. It's actually 735,471. Very sloppy maths. Probably the best pod to date that I've listened to, he said. Bradders, from an Irish perspective, we were asking who the greatest Open champion is. He said, from an Irish perspective, Harrington for sure. Watson overall, though, you're in luck. J-Odd said Tiger Woods, absolutely. And then a lot of people went for Peter Thompson, naturally enough, as well. Darren said, Padraig Harrington called it with Finau hitting one over 206 miles per hour ball speed, 386-yard carry. Bonkers. Yes, did you see this? Finau finished his backswing, and look what happened.
Yeah.
So that's scary. That would suggest that Finau is deliberately, Peter, just playing with a 3/4 backswing and trying to find a fairway with a measly 300-yard drive. But he can carry the thing 386 if he wants to go wild.
Yeah, I remember him coming over to Sweden to play a tournament, or he actually was invited to play in Sweden, to play in the professional tournament, and himself and his brother were on the driving range. And I actually asked both of them, they were just finished, and I said, look, lads, I haven't seen this. Can you hit a few drives for me? Because, I wanted to see. It was all the talk of the range, these two kids coming from America. And it was unbelievable. And they were 14 and 15 years of age at the time. So he's always had the power. And now he just uses it very sparingly. But he has that drive in the bag when he wants it.
Well, Bryson might change his mind. Fergal Favier, Harrington, brilliant for sure. Interesting man as well as outstanding sports person. John Boyle, Padraig outstanding. I could have listened to him for hours. Gents, I'm a massive fan and friend of the pod, but I couldn't believe the discussion around Bryson's win. If Rory had won in similar circumstances, would you ever have raised the possibility of doping?
But we didn't. It was raised obtusely by Brooks Koepka.
Correct. We didn't
Well,
bring it up in a very
yeah.
obvious way immediately after the win. But then Malachi Clerkin wrote a piece, which in fairness was asking why people aren't asking more questions on the PGA Tour of Bryson, which was a fair point. And then Brooks Koepka's tweet meant we had to start the show with it. So if Brooks Koepka accused any Irish player of what it looks like he accused Bryson of, then we would be talking about it. That is for sure. David Hannon.
Non-stop.
Great podcast, lads. I could listen to Harrington all day. Ian Doyle, listening to the pod. Interesting you want Koepka grilled, Joe, but no clamour for anyone to grill Bryson. Has Bryson been tested? Ian. I never said that Bryson DeChambeau should not be grilled, questioned.
No, we said the opposite of that. That it was very difficult for us last week impossible for us to sit here and make accusations around anybody. But we were saying that when he is in front of the media, which I don't think he was this week, that he then is asked the questions. And listen, we all know what I'm sure his answers are going to be. It's all out there on my Instagram. I've been very honest and open all the way through this. But we most definitely did not say that Bryson does not need to answer some questions. But so does Koepka. Like, Koepka can't just roll through, throw out what is some form of, if not an accusation, certainly raising eyebrows at what DeChambeau has done, and then just get away with it. If somebody needs to ask him straight out. Bizarrely, neither of them seem to have done any real media. Maybe not bizarrely at all. Neither of them seem to have done any real media this week.
Well, DeChambeau did about 15, 20 minutes, but I don't think he was directly asked about Koepka situation or that general shade which has been thrown his way. Richie, during the weekend off the ball, had a DeChambeau clip, and I was asking him, was he asked specifically about Koepka? And Richie was saying, not really, no, it didn't come up as a thing. So it seems to have just disappeared a little bit. But for the record, Ian, look, we've been, we talk this whole area, doping, performance enhancing, on the show all the time. Nobody here is naive. Nobody here is unaware of how the world works. However, we were just making the point, as Nathan says, that as well as talking to Bryson, then I think you have to talk to Brooks Koepka, as opposed to allowing him just flippantly throw a joke out there and then not follow up at all. Julianne Moroney, guys, listen to the podcast this week. Fantastic. Is there anyone like Padraig? Is he actually the most insightful and interesting voice in golf? That's a discussion point worth pausing on.
Except for Peter Lowry, of course.
No, to be fair, he's one of the very few that you'd actually, ask some questions and actually listen to the answer. Some of the old coaches out there, you'd love to sit down. Bob Torrance was one of them. You'd have a cup of tea with Bob. You're sitting on the side of the range. Bob would be waiting for one of the players to come along, and he'd wax lyrically about different players, different swings, what it was like, golf previous to this, or previous to when he was teaching. And some of the other guys as well out there were fabulous to listen to. Pete Cowan is another one. The structure of the golf swing and the structure of the club and the angles and stuff like that is just mind-boggling. So there is a couple of other guys out there, but they're few and far between.
I could
Where
listen
did
to
you
Butch
go last
Harmon
week, Peter?
all day long.
Sorry, Phil. I was
No,
just wondering.
go on. Actually, that's a good question. Where
Peter,
did you go?
Where did you go? Just about halfway through this incredibly insightful interview from Harrington, you just got bored and hung up.
Exactly. Yeah. I have heard it all before, so I just said, "Look, leave it alone." A few people tweeted in. Actually, the solicitors came in and cut me out. But no, I ran out of power, and I was sitting in the office in Spawell and going, "Okay, what do I do? Do I just get up, walk out, get some power, come back in, and nobody will notice? Or do I just sit there and hope Harrington will shut up talking for a couple of minutes and I can go run out and get power?" So anyway, that didn't happen. So unfortunately, I just disappeared.
Harrington did DeChambeau a huge favour last week. A unbelievable favour. And while I don't think I've seen it, say, officially acknowledged by any of the golfers that they were listening to our podcast, certainly the way people spoke about it seemed to reflect a lot of what Harrington was saying. So again, you can question Bryson DeChambeau, but Harrington goes, you can explain it all, and then spend 15 minutes explaining why he thinks Bryson's been able to do what he's done, and obviously then quite timely the clip comes out of Tony Finau. But even listening to McIlroy yesterday, and I thought McIlroy might be asked about the Brooks Bryson thing, and wasn't really, but he was going again with the line of, the impressive thing really of DeChambeau isn't so much the distance, it's that he's hitting it straight. Is that he's managing to get that sort of speed, that sort of distance, and still hit it straight. And that seems to be how it sort of developed this week. Because I did think this was going to blow up massively, that this was going to be this monumental story around Bryson DeChambeau. But everyone now seems to be, when you think about it, maybe he hasn't bulked up that much.
I would have, like, to go back to Ian's tweet. I mean, I think with evidence, that's all you can deal with. And Brooks Koepka is the one with the question to answer right now, this week. Having said all of that, I think I'm kind of surprised that journalists didn't pursue any line of questioning of DeChambeau, of Brooks, just even asking. It's like, I mean, I realize that I'm way, way, way outside the tent here, but like, I just find it an interesting and not particularly inspiring fact about the golf world that journalists don't pursue a line. And, they're not accusing anybody, just going, here's an interesting thing. Brooks Koepka put out a tweet that seemed to allude to something. And Pádraig Harrington on an Irish podcast made a very kind of vehement and convincing defense. Any comment? Anybody? Like, that seems to me like just journalism 101. And the fact that it hasn't happened, I don't know. I don't think it's a good thing.
Well, I did see James Corrigan tweeting that, I'm making the point that Brooks hadn't actually said it was DeChambeau. And I think his point was, well, Harrington shouldn't really be commenting on it then as European Ryder Cup captain, when Koepka hadn't named DeChambeau, that it was sort of just thrown out there, and maybe it was just coincidental timing wise.
Yeah, he didn't name him, but it was obvious to everybody who Koepka was talking about. I mean, it was just plainly obvious. I admire your 2 feet up, Fionn. At the same time, I don't know what access journalists have had to the players here. I would just say that, like, we're getting dispatches. I'm not sure who's asking the questions, because all of the players have been interviewed looking directly into a camera. So it's very, very possible, and I would say even likely, that it's PGA Tour people asking the questions. So
I watched Rory's full press conference yesterday, and it was Rex Hoggard asked the first question.
Okay.
Jimmy Weir from Sky asked the question. It was the 5 or 6. Ewan Murray asked the question.
Well, then,
from the
scrap
Guardian.
my point.
So they were let in.
Dead right.
But it is, again, the DeChambeau one will be more interesting when you get the answer from Koepka, because if Koepka were to double down, then you really do have a story that the leading players in the world are questioning how he has done this. Whereas, ask again, maybe you should ask McIlroy yesterday, do you agree with what it looks like Brooks was saying?
Well,
I don't know what.
Would you ask him that? What do you think of Brooks Koepka's tweet? Did you see it? Oh, I didn't see it. It
is, in fairness to the journalist, a totally different scenario when you're on Zoom. Even in press conferences are difficult enough at the best of times to try and get back-to-back questions. Never mind, you've one question on Zoom and you need to word it exactly perfectly so that Rory answers it in the correct and appropriate way that you want. So, what do you ask? I'm not quite sure.
Do you not think golf journalism has become very diluted, though? They don't seem to ask the hard questions. It's all very softly. And
give us an example.
There's no real bite about it. For the players, like, okay, nobody's asked Brooks about his tweet. Why hasn't that happened?
Because they don't have access to him at the moment on the course. So again, I didn't see anything from Brooks doing a press conference this week. Therefore, journalists aren't allowed to approach players at the course. So there's no opportunity. Now maybe Brooks goes and shoots 63 this evening and he does a post-round interview and somehow it comes up there. Be surprised, but
I can't imagine that Amanda Balionis is going to ask him anything.
No.
It's probably a debate for a different day, and you'd love to get some of the golf writers on to talk about it as well, how the job has changed. Firstly, there's far less golf writers covering the game.
It is worth it's also two things worth pointing out. Is there are some terrific golf writers. There's some pretty fearless, really great golf writers that I admire enormously. And also the second point is that was golf ever like the great, Sherlock Holmes of like really kind of investigating, or was it always a cozier relationship between players and journalists who knew each other's anecdotes, who knew all of the stuff, and then made a point of never, ever, ever seeing any of it ever in print, which I'm not criticizing, and I'm just saying that was the way it was. And so I don't know that it was ever a time where a golf journalist put on his investigator's hat and then went in to really find the true story, So I just think that's the nature of the game.
Yeah. Peter, what was your experience of golf journalists and the questioning?
You would always have a relationship with the journalists, especially some of them in particular. Now, I knew when I was going through my torrid time at the end, and they were like reluctant to ask me any questions. And I said, lads, it's fine. You have to do your job. I'm trying to do mine, but you have to do a job. You have to find out why I'm shooting these numbers, or give your readers a reason why Peter Lorry's progression has just went down the tubes. And I could understand that. So I stood there and I gave as best I could an explanation of what was going on. But there again, you can see some of them having a kind of a bit of a torrid time with some players in their relationship with them, and they will be singled out for their questions not to be answered. A bit like Donald Trump, fake news, not answering you, move on.
It's all.
And that's what I would have seen in my time.
It's also worth highlighting that the preeminent player of the last 20 years is a player who is unashamedly and unequivocally off access to the media, that picks and chooses exactly who he speaks to and limits what he's ever going to say, and as a result sets a pattern of behavior that I think a lot of golf journalists then abide by, because like the most interesting story in golf in the last 2 decades is Tiger Woods, and this is a man who, as I said, is famously cut off from media access. So isn't that just the way of things?
Well, I would just say, I mean, I take everything you're saying about the lack of questioning thus far being noteworthy when it comes to Koepka, but I would just say we're not on the ground. I don't know exactly what the access is like. If we're still here in 3 weeks' time and there's been ample opportunity to bring it up, then there's a case. I just think thus far, 2-3 days into a tournament, I don't know who's had access to and when, for how long, under what conditions. We're not on the ground. But like, if in 2-3 weeks' time this tweet has just come and gone, and no one's ever asked him about it, then yes, absolutely, I'll join.
Yeah, that's a fair cop, I think.
So we're hoping to be joined by Tom Watson any moment. One last tweet, by the way, I would throw to Julian's question, which got that whole tangent going. I would throw Jeff Ogilvy in, actually, as if I ever see Jeff Ogilvy writing or interviewed, I think he's right up there. Do you know him, Peter? Did you ever play with him?
No, never played with him.
No.
I've met him on the range, but never played with him.
Yeah, he's fascinating. He's not dissimilar in some ways to Harrington, thinks deeply. And then finally, Marcus Keaney, what a pod this week. I could sit and listen to Harrington for hours. Such a wealth of knowledge, wisdom about the game, absolute gems in there too. That was the general theme of tweets about Harrington, Nathan. Basically, like all of us, just the depth of his knowledge is of a different level. I mean, you were just getting a man who knows as much about the game probably as anyone in the world.
Well, just thinks about the game. It feels deeper than anyone in the world. And even going back to his Open Championship victories, when he's talking about going up against Garcia, even though you've heard parts of the story 1,000 times before, he's thought about it since, and thought about it in a deeper way and in a different way. And you're getting a slightly different angle on the same old story. And you're like, bloody hell, I never thought about that. Never. Yeah. How do he doesn't drive himself demented? I'm not quite sure.
Well, to be honest, lads, I walked around the range after our podcast, and I thought to myself, why do I not know as much as that man about golf? And I just thought to myself, how did he accumulate all this information? And I thought, then I went, right, I'm going to have to do something about this. I'm going to have to get some information like this. But I was even amazed, never mind the listeners. And I've spent hours upon hours with Boric at dinners and stuff like that. And he still, is able to amaze me with his level of knowledge and his level of dedication to the sport. Last week was the first time I had heard that he was so, he checked out the swing speeds of people. I didn't know that. Now, I knew he'd know his own, and I knew, he'd know his own in comparison to probably, one or two other players. But never did I know that he would be checking out on a week-to-week basis, swing speeds and ball speeds and stuff like that. So it just
I think
goes
we
to show
should
you.
do the most boring Golf Weekly segment of all time, where we test Paul Carrington on random players from the top 50 in the world swings.
Yeah.
See, can he get 20 out of 20?
Yeah.
It could be quite dull.
Could be.
They are your tweets for this week. We are hopefully going to speak with Tom Watson very shortly.
What an atmosphere. I can't believe this is happening. So many golfing greats all together today.
Crowd going wild out here.
Look at this. Look at this. Oh, Jack Nicklaus. Hello, Rory. Well done, my man.
Electric atmosphere at the home of golf. Cheers go up from the grandstands for two gladiators of the game.
Great Norman. Tiger. Wonderful start for Nick Fowler. Seve being Seve.
Swashbuckling start. And once again, delighted the galleries. What a treat to see all of these champions playing together. How have they done this?
Two of the greatest players the game's ever seen going head to head.
Oh, the atmosphere, it's really heating up out here.
How about that? How about that, Jack? Hello, boy, Jordan.
Fantastic.
There you go, Seve. Oh, it's perfect. There's nothing like the Open. The Open for the ages. Even better.
What a spectacle. That really is something else.
So there's a really exciting concept coming up. You'll be able to watch it on Sky Sports and the RNA YouTube page. It's the Open for the Ages. And so over the next 4 days, and this will culminate on Sunday, archive footage from the last 50 years has been edited together, in effect, to give us a tournament of all the greats of the game. They'll go up against each other at St. Andrews. The final round is going to be broadcast on Sky Sports and the Open's YouTube channel from 11 a.m. So if you're a fan of the history of the game like us and you want to see well-produced footage of legendary swings, or even if you're just missing the Open on a Sunday in July, then check this out. Let us know what you think about it as well. Delighted to say, as part of the promotion for the Open for the Ages, we have a man who knows a thing or two about winning Open championships, winner of 8 majors, 5 Open championships, the Masters twice, US Open at Pebble, 6 senior majors, Ryder Cup captain twice, PGA Tour Player of the Year 6 times, member of the Hall of Fame. I could go on, Tom Watson, but that's a decent intro as intros go. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, this is going to be fun. The Open for the Ages, virtual. This is going to be a great time. I can't wait to watch it.
Who was your favorite player from the Ages, excluding your own game? Clearly, you've seen everybody.
Well, my favorite player, it has to go back probably to Byron Nelson. I think Byron, who was a great friend. I had a personal relationship with Byron, and over the years of being with him, helping me with my golf swing, I got to see him up close and personal. He was a much better person than he was a golfer, and he may have been the greatest golfer, unsung golfer in the history of the game.
When we talk about you and the Open Championship, it's a love affair. As I understand it, though, it wasn't exactly love at first sight.
No, it wasn't. I really didn't like links golf at all. When I first played it, my very first shot, Montefiore Golf Club, in a round at, right before the Open Championship at Carnoustie. My very first golf shot, I hit right down the middle of the fairway and lost the ball. Where did it bounce to? It was absolutely totally dry, concrete. I ended up finding the ball, but after extensive search, and I said, I don't like this game. The way this is played, I had a perfect drive down the middle of the fairway and I lost the ball. But I grew to understand that I couldn't fight it. I had to join it and to try to understand that the luck of the bounce played an intimate part, integral part, if you will, in the way the game was played. Plus the fact that you had to understand how far the ball was going to roll. You had to feel how far the ball was going to roll after it landed, and that's the difference between links golf and American golf. American golf, the ball pretty much stops where it lands with your irons. And playing links golf courses, especially in the wind, you really have to feel how far that ball is going to go. And the critical thing, and as a golfer, has always been getting the right distance with your shot. When you hit it the right distance, like critical in putting. When people talk about putting, it's not so much the line, it's the field distance, because the distance field determines your line, and that's the same thing in links golf.
You were obviously up for the battle of links golf, Tom, because I was very surprised to read how long it took you to get the love of it. I think you had 3 Open Championships by the time you really felt that you had that love of links golf. And I think Ireland had a strong role in that. There was a trip to Ballybunion around 1981 where something just clicked, and actually, despite having 3 claret jugs already, you could actually enjoy going to an Open Championship.
Well, I was in my transformational stage then. I started in '79 when I kicked myself in the butt saying, hey, don't make any excuses. It's your golf game. Play the golf course as you find it. But a couple of years later, I had the chance to play Ballybunion with a close personal friend, Sandy Tatum, and then went up and played Royal Dornoch, along with a 36-hole day at Old Prestwick in Troon, which was just a delightful trip. But I remember the last day at Dornoch, we played an early 18-hole round, and then went again to play another 18-hole round in the afternoon. And it was pouring rain, sideways, with the wind. And I got to the 16th hole, and I said to Tatum, Tatum, I don't think I've ever had more fun playing golf than right now. And that was when that's when I gave the engagement ring to links golf right there.
Tom, as someone who started his career or generally hit the ball quite high, did you make any technical adjustments to your swing to play links golf, to play wind, to kind of keep the ball slightly lower?
I really didn't. I wasn't a very good low ball hitter early in my career. I did hit the ball very high. And the one thing I did do, I hit the ball very solidly. And in the wind, that's the key factor. You have to hit the ball solidly. And to determine how far it went in the air, hitting the ball high solidly, that was a feel factor that you had to adjust to with the wind. But I got one of the critical factors of why I won the Open Championship so many times is I was a great scrambler. I got the ball up and down, and links golf makes you miss a lot of greens because the greens are so firm. And I was right in my wheelhouse, hitting the ball up and down. It was like Seve. Seve was a magician around the greens. You missed the green, got the ball up and down. Missed the green, got the ball up and down. Hit the ball 30 feet from the hole on the green, hole it for birdie. Most people would be 2 over par and you're 1 under. That's how I won a lot of my Open Championships.
I suspect not many days go by without somebody mentioning Turnberry in '09 to you, which resonated with the world.
Comes up now and then.
now and then. How do you reflect on it? Is it a great disappointment or what?
Well, yes, it was a disappointment. I had it in my grasp. I hit on the last hole, the 72nd hole, my second shot there. When the ball was coming down, I literally had flashback to 1977 on the same hole when my 7-iron in 77 was coming right down the stack. My 8-iron was coming right down the stack in 2009, and the only concern I had was the wind at my back. We had a lot more wind at my back in 2009 than 77, and I was concerned about it going over the green, which it did. And subsequently, I made bogey and lost in a playoff to Stuart Sink. But the disappointment was great. But at the advanced age of 59, I have to say that, and also having won the Open Championship a few times, the disappointment wasn't as great if that was my only chance to have won the Open Championship. So
people love the story of the phone call from Jack Nicklaus to your room afterwards that evening about your third shot.
Well, he called and he said, Tom, I watched it from the beginning to the end, something I've never done before. And then he proceeded to talk about, you had a perfect drive at 18. Second shot, if it comes up 6 inches shorter, you win the championship. Third shot, you played the shot that wouldn't lose you the championship. And the fourth, the putt, you hit it like the rest of us would have hit it, you dog. But what he said about the third shot was, that's what I was mulling over as far as the shot. The ball was sitting down in the light rough there. It was sitting down in the hole. And, I just said, I can pop this thing right out of the hole with the putter and have it scoot up the hill. And I goosed it too hard and hit it too hard. But, I still believe I hit the right shot. Yeah, could I have chipped the ball? Sure, I could have chipped the ball. And I could have done better, but I could have done worse too. So it was the shot that I played at the time that I thought was the best. It gave me the best option. It gave me the best option for success.
Tom, it's funny when you talk about Americans and links golf, there's always, for some reason, questions about their love for links golf and do they fully buy into the Open experience, which is strange considering how many Americans go and then win the Open Championship. But we had Chip Beck on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about playing in Open Championships, and he would love to try and spend as much time as he could with yourself or with Jack Nicklaus and just soak up as much information as possible. Did you find when you had 5 of them in the bag that you had an awful lot of players coming to you, trying to figure out the secret, trying to spend a lot of time with you on the range on the week of an Open?
Well, I did. I had players, calling me up before I went over to the UK and asked if they could play a practice round with me. Of course I did. And I always relished that. I enjoyed, going out and playing practice rounds with the various players and fielding their questions if they had any questions. But just like me, when I went over there earlier on, I tried to seek out Jack and play practice rounds with Jack because he was the best strategizer, if there's a word like that in the dictionary. That his management of the golf course was primo, and that's what I wanted to learn. How did he play? What clubs did he use, and why did he use? When he teed off, where you. And I could figure out around the greens where to hit it, and miss it, but off the tee, how do you take the bunkers out of play? There's certain elements that I learned from Jack that really helped me in playing links golf.
And Tom, given that your rivalry with Jack is like one of golf's great rivalries or sports great rivalries, no more so than in 77 or 82 at Pebble is the one I remember quite well. How generous was he? I mean, you were his junior by 10 years, I think, or you are his junior by 10 years. How generous was he in sharing his knowledge with what I imagine he must have seen as, who is this young upstart coming to take my crown away?
No, he was very generous. I had a wonderful experience when I was a youngster. I won the Kansas City men's match play, which I still consider my most important victory in my life, which then it allowed me to get an invitation to play with Arnold Palmer when I was 15 years old, and then Jack when I was 17 years old, to play in exhibitions with him. And it allowed me to get to continue my dream of maybe someday I could be like Jack or Arnie, and play professional golf at the highest levels. And when I got on the tour, both Arnie and Jack remembered me, which was kind of surprising because I was just a kid. But Jack was always very gracious, as he is with everybody. Jack is he's wonderful. He's a wonderful guy to be around, a man to be around, because he understands the game, inside and out, and he's willing to share his thoughts about how to play the game. If you ask him a question, he's going to give you an answer, just like he did with the press. One of the beautiful things about Jack was that earlier on, the press, they took him on, and Arnie was their hero. Actually, they had a favorite. They loved Arnie, and Jack was the upstart. He wore frumpy clothes, and he was called Fat Jack, and he beat Arnie in the playoff and in the U.S. Open. And the press, they asked him tough questions, and Jack sometimes gave him the honest answers. He didn't pussyfoot around. And what Jack said, I remember later on in his life, he said, I've always thought that you're doing your job. You ask a question, it's my responsibility to give you an honest answer, the best answer I can possibly give you. And Jack, he was that way with his players. If you asked him an honest question, he'd give you an honest answer. And that's what I've always loved about him.
Well, on that theme, I'm going to risk asking an honest question. So I was in the press conference at Gleneagles, and I watched you the whole time, and you were steadfast and just stared straight ahead. I've always wanted to know what was going through your mind.
About what?
About what Phil Mickelson was saying.
Oh, okay. Well, he came up with his opinion about on an answer that I really had no response to. So I kept quiet at that time, and Phil subsequently said to me, here not too many years ago, actually last year, he apologized to me for those comments, and I said, Phil, it's over. Whatever was between us, it's over.
Okay, I didn't realize that, because it would have been tempting for you to want to defend yourself publicly, and you made the decision not to in that moment.
Well, that's correct. I don't think it would have served any purpose to.
Another point I was very curious about, Harbourtown 1994 on a Tuesday. So, I mean, look, we're out here hacking. This game's hard enough as it is, and you're still winning the par 3 Masters age 68. Can you talk to us about your longevity?
Well, first of all, I kiddingly say that it's in my genes. From my mom and dad, they gave me great genes. And my body has always been very, very healthy. I've kept my body in good shape, and I haven't had too many injuries. But in 1994, I was struggling with my game for about 7 years. I really started to struggle with it. I had a chance to win a few tournaments that I didn't win. And by the time, it was just a struggle every week. And I went to the practice tee after a particularly bad practice round, as I always did, to try to find some gimmick, some swing thought that was going to help me, or to turn the light switch on. That's it. And I found it. And I said, I really thought outside the box. I said, the thing that I looked down at my divots, and they're toe deep, and they're kind of aiming to the right a little bit, and I'm missing the ball to the right all the time, and not hitting the ball very solidly. And I said, I want to make that divot go, start and go left. I want to shallow the divot out. I don't want a toe deep divot. How do I do that? Well, I just said, I just got to feel like I'm hitting over the top with my right shoulder this way, rather than coming in here and leaning back, getting this left shoulder high, right shoulder too low. And when I did that, I started working my shoulders this way, where they were more rotational right around the base of my spine. But it felt like my right shoulder was like this at impact. But it wasn't. It was really just more level at impact rather than dipping down and falling back. And that one thought right there changed my swing forever.
That's amazing, because what you feel isn't always real. So did you not have a coach? Did you not have someone down the years that you were having as a set of eyes on your swing who might have said that to you, or how did it work?
I had lots of eyes that were on my from my dad to Stan Thirst, to Herman Charlo, to Byron Nelson, to Jack Nicklaus, to John Mahaffey we palled around with, to Andy North, Bob Murphy. We pros, we talk about our swings, this and that, and go to teachers. But the thing is, back in those days, you didn't have the videos, and the video, I think, is a big reason why the players today, I think, swing the golf club better than we did back in the old days, because the videos can show you directly. Right now, you can see your swing. Get your iPhone out. Take a video, you can slow motion, pause it. And then you can do that. Then you have the launch monitors and all that sort of stuff, and that can really help you see what you're doing, rather than just depend on your feel. Now, it doesn't eliminate your feel. Your feel has to be the most important thing. You have to feel the swing. Mechanically, yes, you make a change. Your feel is going to change. So you have to visually see the change on the video, to coincide with the feel change. And sometimes you don't do it enough. So you have to do it more than what your feel tells you to do. That's the advantage of the video.
Tom, can I ask you a slightly un-golf related question? The more I read about you, the more fascinated I am by the breadth and scope of the way, like, you've got your pilot's license, you're mad into photography, bird watching, but over the last few years, you've gotten really into cutting. To us here in Ireland, who literally, this is a sport that belongs in the plains of West Texas or whatever. What is cutting and why the fascination?
Well, that's actually where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting in Texas right now at my place down here. I'm fortunate enough. I have a cutting horse facility here that have a trainer that has cutting horses. My wife, God rest her soul, she loved to cut, and I followed her around for a number of years until I got tired of watching, and I had to do it. And I finally started this thing about 4 years ago. And
but what is it exactly?
Well, it's like a sheepdog and sheep. I'm the sheepdog on the back of a horse, and those sheep want to get back into their herd. And what I do, I get a cow, and so I walk into the herd, and I separate a cow from the herd. And then that cow, once it's separated, I have to put the reins down on the back of the horse. I can't use the reins anymore to guide the horse. Now it's me and the horse and my feet. And that horse has to keep that cow from getting back into the herd. And that horse is designed and trained to stay even with the cow as it goes this way and this way and this way, so the cow doesn't have an angle to get around the horse. And it can get fast, and it is a rush.
And unfortunately, that is where technology let us down. So of all times, my Wi-Fi has been rock solid during this pandemic, and then it went right when Fionn was talking to him there. And so there's another couple of minutes with Tom, which unfortunately we lost, which is a sickener, but that's what we got with him anyway. Perfect timing for my Wi-Fi to go, Fionn. Perfect.
I'll recap. He's not playing that much golf at the moment, or he did a bit during the pandemic, but he had rotator cuff surgery, so he's in a brace, but he's not actually in a brace today. His favorite course traditionally of the Open Rota was Muirfield, but since the newly redesigned Turnberry course, so he loves that one, he thinks. And then he looked at me and he went, "Have you played it?" And I was like, in my head, my brain is going, "Tom, I think you have a very different idea of who I am." I'm like, So there's such a shame, and I was genuinely interested in the cutting in that rodeo style, kind of herding cattle, basically, that he's doing, and that his late wife had introduced him to, and but he, like, and in the answer, you don't hear the full of the answer because he's saying, oh, I'm just an amateur, he says. But like, it's competitive as all hell. And he wins money doing it. Like,
Nice.
Like he jokingly has this thing that in an article that I read that he ideally would like to win as much money as he ever won in prize money playing golf.
Wow.
And like, given that obviously his heyday was way back when, it's like, it's not a million, it's not like the most ridiculous thing in the world, but he is that serious about this.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
And he's come from a sport where you use your arms, and now he's not allowed to use his arms.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Can I admit something? I mean, there's a lot of fourth wall stuff that we can reveal about broken technology and like, oh, what's going on?
We've been here for a very long time recording.
We have been here for like a considerable length of time.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, lads, I'm not kidding. As soon as I saw his face, because also there was all this difficulties with him trying to connect into our Zoom and, so anyway, but once he came up, I kid you not, I felt like I was a child. Like, I'm like, I've got one of the 5 most famous, most renowned, most accomplished golfers of the 20th century in our little me. I have to say, I was no amount of starstruck. I really was. Tom Watson. That was pretty amazing.
So Open for the Ages is on across the week. It'll be on Sky Sports. It's on the RNA YouTube channel. Tiger Woods is going to feature, obviously. So here's a little clip of Tiger that they sent us on as well.
It's the best. Playing at St. Andrews, it's literally the best. It's like going back in time. And to play the home of golf and to have 1-2 Opens there. It's one of the greatest walks coming up 18. You see the whole town there, and like every great player has ever played the game has played St. Andrews. You can't say that at any other golf course. Watch me take on the greats in the Open for the Ages.
There you are. There's Tiger. Tune in. Tell us what you think. And that was Tom Watson. Apologies, it's not a bit longer. You'd love to go more in depth. I admit I feel a touch queasy having asked him about the Gleneagles press conference. I'm sure it's not his fondest thing to think of. So, it was one of those, do you ask, do you not ask? That's where I am in that situation.
Joe, as I said to you, if you hadn't asked, I was going to ask.
Well, I wish you had.
In fairness, look, I understand, it's like, look, in the real world, this is Tom Watson. He's been asked to do, he's going to talk to like a host of media today about the Open and all the rest. But here's the thing. He gave you like his little comment about Jack Nicklaus beforehand, where Jack is talking to journalists and he goes, look, your guy's job is to ask tough questions. And that's the way it goes. It's respect for a profession. And I think I'm going to take a guess that a lot of the listeners to this podcast would certainly be familiar with Tom Watson's 5 Open wins. They would know about his nearly in 2009. But a lot of them would also go, is just that like appallingly uncomfortable press conference after the Ryder Cup in 2014. And like you, I've been wondering for years, what did Tom Watson think while Phil Mickelson was saying what he said? So, I have to say, I'm glad you asked, if only not to make Tom Watson uncomfortable, but also for him to be able to kind of give us his view of the whole situation.
Well, anyway, it's in there. It was asked. one of those weird things. Yeah. So, right, let's get through the golf, because weirdly, the golf at the moment has just been incredibly entertaining over the last while. So let's just finish up on last week's, and then we'll tee up what's hopefully ahead. All at Muirfield Village this week. It's the Memorial. Last week, obviously, it was the Workday Charity Open. Mark Warren won in Austria on the European Tour, by the way, we should mention. But really, the Sunday in particular at the Workday Charity Open was just incredible. I think it doesn't always shape up for a Sunday at a tournament, but when you had Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, effectively the only 3 in the running for the tournament in the same group, that just worked. You know, from a TV perspective, that just really worked. And obviously, as we know, it went to a playoff. Morikawa won. He now has 2 wins on the PGA Tour in his 24 starts. So he has more wins than he has missed cuts in his 24 starts in the PGA Tour, which is just quite something. And I mean, as for the way it unfolded, the kids, as we'll call them, started really fast. Justin Thomas caught fire. He was 7 under through 8 holes. That looked to be it done. And there was just drama to the end. Not least, here's, Fionn, my main memory, as much as the playoff jumps to mind, and Thomas's putt in the first hole, where Jack Nicklaus texted him congratulations before getting on a plane, by the way, thinking he surely won it now. But what lingers in the mind about Morikawa, if you're looking for guides as to what kind of player we're looking at here going forward, it is the 14th hole, the drivable par 4. Thomas lays up. He's right to do that under the circumstances, you would say. He's in control of the tournament. Then Victor Hovland, driver out, goes for it, finds water. There's an 8-meter gap they showed on the TV graphic, that funnel into the green. 8 meters if you're going to bounce your driver in there. And Hovland goes in the water and he's out of the tournament. You know, so he has ruled himself out of the tournament right in front of Colin Morikawa's eyes. And Morikawa steps up with the driver, boom, onto the green. I see, like, you're just sitting there at home thinking, my God, the balls on this kid to be doing this.
He'd almost kind of had to do it in a way, because Thomas had, well, maybe not quite the lead he had on the turn, but he had to make something happen. But you're absolutely right. I can't even remember. Do you remember the 3-wood that Rory hit? What was it, 2-3 years ago? That one shot of the year, like this. Yeah,
the Irish Open on the 16th.
Yeah, like this. Yeah. This is just. Yeah, absolutely. The stones on this young man to exactly as you said, after watching Hovland go into water, and if he needed reminding, which of course he didn't, but if he needed an extra reminder of what a high risk, high reward shot this was, but then to commit, take it on and hit an absolute perler. It was just, oh my God. I have to say, it was so exciting. It was the 50-footer that JT made, followed by, now the 50-footer was just incredible, but then Morikawa's 23-footer. It was just like, oh my God. I mean, all of it was so exciting, to the point that I'm sitting there going, since lockdown ended, golf has been better consistently than it has been for a very long time.
We can always confuse correlation and causation, but you wonder if not having the fans there has somehow contributed to better play, more concentrated play. Who knows? I guess there mightn't be as much adrenaline. So we don't know the answer to that. But I agree with you. Since it's come back, it's just been really, really, really good. Morikawa takes a long time over his putts, Peter. He makes me nervous.
To be fair to him, though, he didn't take that much time over the putt for the to keep the playoff alive. He pretty much got over that one, picked his line, and off he went. So, you know, but you're right, he does, especially the short one. The short one on the 72nd hole looked like he had missed it left, and it just snuck in. Reminded me of the previous week where he let he missed a short one, didn't he? In the to let the play to
that's right, to miss out. Yeah.
Miss out.
Charles Schwab as well. He missed a couple.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at here in this kid? This is a lightning start. This is Tiger Woods-esque start. 24 starts, 1 missed cut, 2 wins.
But he has to have 43 more wins before he misses his next cut, which is Tiger Woods' stat. So he's a long way to go. But he certainly looks the full package.
Yeah. It's interesting, both him and Hovland are very much of the shoot at the top and rotate the body mold. That seems to be predominantly what's coming out of the colleges at the moment.
What's coming out of the colleges is fearless golfers. They don't care who they're up against. And as Fionn was saying, and you were saying, just take driver where it needs to be taken and have a go. And they're changing kind of golf, really. Normally you would come out and you take a few years to make it, but these young kids come out of college now and they're already superstars before they're 25.
I think that's absolutely the point. I mean, you've got like obviously these brilliant finishes because and no more so than last weekend with the three closest guys all in the one group. But the golf has been top quality. Like, I mean, I know Justin Thomas lost, but some of his golf on Sunday was sensational. Particularly, like he had 2 approach shots to cumulative 52 inches. One of them, I think, one of them he made for eagle. You've also got interesting new rivalries. So, like, is Victor Hovland going to like Colin Morikawa? Great thing. Also, like, take your pick. New kind of villains, and in inverted commas, you know, like all of the elements that makes for exciting sport are already there. And most importantly, as Peter just said, is it's like you've got a whole group of young Tyro, super talented golfers who aren't the golfers of tomorrow. They're the golfers of right now. And they're not asking for permission. And like traditionally, and Peter, I'm sure you can articulate this far better than I, but that like the traditional entry route into the big leagues is that you paid your dues for a little while, you doffed your cap to the senior players. Whereas these kids who already perform at an incredibly high level in college and in the amateur ranks, all of a sudden walk onto the pros and go, all right, where's my tee time? And they don't apologize to anyone. They're not deferring to anybody else. And I think it makes for, certainly the interesting thing is that I would like to see how the Rory Mcilroys and I don't want to say Brooks Koepka is now officially a veteran, but you feel like he's already part of the older guard, you know?
Yes.
Whereas, and that makes for this exciting mix in golf is like Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa. These guys are going to be around for a while. You'd certainly think like they've got the game to play.
On Hovland, Peter, there was an amazing moment where he duffed a chip, and on commentary on the Sunday, they were talking about him, and I think it was Nobilo and Ian Baker Finch and Faldo, and they were all in agreement that you never see a great chipper take the club back slightly shut on the inside, which is what Hovland does. And he then promptly holed the chip, which was a funny moment after duffing one. And they said he'll never. Now, he's on the record as saying he's pretty shitty at chipping, his words. So is that true? Is that a fairly accepted point that you won't take the club back on the inside and be a good chipper?
I would definitely think so. Your angle of attack is, you haven't created any angle of attack. Everything is very shallow. And it's very difficult to chip the ball out of kind of any difficult lies because you need to be more aggressive. You need to come down on top of the ball a little bit more. So I think he will struggle chipping it unless he has a very good lie. And then he can control it his way. But I looked at Victor Hovland and he has played a lot of golf and he's been in contention and then he's driven to a lot of the tournaments. He just looked tired coming into the last couple of holes there last week. But he looks like he's looks like he's going to be very good for a long period of time.
I can't remember where it was. Was it one of the guys on CBS Sports or Golf Channel were making the argument that since lockdown ended, that Victor Hovland's been the most consistent golfer, which is an interesting thing to say, given that he hasn't won and Bryson DeChambeau has been around, who's just completely owned the news. But it really is testimony to how good Hovland is, even without winning. It's just that everybody is noticing him. I mean, I know we talked about him last year as one to look out for, but he's some player. Look, DeChambeau is what he's doing is extraordinary stuff. But he's in good company. That's what I'd say.
So that brings us rapidly on to, again, Muirfield Village for the Memorial Tournament, Jack's Tournament. The field here is crazy strong. 9 of the world's top 10 are there. Adam Scott has stayed at home and stayed away from the restart. By all accounts, this is the strongest ever field at a PGA Tour event. In a mathematical equation I don't fully understand. I heard the point made during the week that the field is stronger in rankings terms than the last 8 Masters. So we're talking about an incredible event coming here. Interestingly, the course is going to be torn up on Monday. So opened in 1974, they're going to town on it come Monday. So they don't need to worry about saving the greens or anything. They can do what they want here. Apparently, the setup's going to be much tougher. We heard this last week. They'll go from 11 on the Stimpmeter to 14 on the Stimpmeter. there's a week's extra growth of rough. Jack has said he's okay with one day, the 14th par 4 being drivable, so we'll get one more day of drama like that. But we are stacked here. I mean, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, and Brooks Koepka in a feature group is just tantalizing. And then Shane Lowry, Phil Mickelson, Justin Rose in another group, and Bryson DeChambeau. He's with Patrick Cantlay anyway, the winner of last year. I think he's hit a drive. How many yards?
And Morikawa.
And Morikawa. He's hit a drive already today, over 400 yards.
Yeah. Who have you got? I'm just looking at the other groups here. It's John Ram, Sergio Garcia, and Tony Finau in another. Jordan Spieth's playing with Cameron Champ and Andrew Landry. Jordan Spieth is currently now at the hour of 5 p.m. GMT. He's 1 under. But yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. And it was interesting because I'd read ahead of the workday, they were saying the two courses will be unrecognizable. Or sorry, the course will be unrecognizable in both events. So that the workday, the rough was cut quite back. The greens were running vaguely slower, as you said, at 11. And this week is going to be an entirely different challenge. So even though it's the exact same golf course, it'll play completely differently. So, and I think, is it the first time in something like, I don't know, 50 years or 60 years that they played back-to-back at the same venue?
This is one of Tiger's haunts, Peter. Obviously, he's won 5 times here. This is one of those go-to courses for him. Who does this type of setup suit? Rough is right up. Course is about 7,500 yards. Greens are fast. You've got all the world's best players there. It tends to produce a good caliber of winner. Who are you expecting to contend this week?
If I was putting a tenner on, I think I would go with John Ram this week. Hits the ball straight-ish, quite long, quite a good putter, puts well on fast greens. Just, you read about Rory, he has had Michael Bannon back over with him. Tiger hasn't played in how long? 4 or 5 weeks now, is it?
4 or 5 months.
Well, he played that, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
During lockdown,
we're including the match here, are we? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was the last time we saw him, and he was pretty decent then. But
well, if we're going by those metrics, then he played like last week in his home course. He's been playing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I thought we were talking about the PGA Tour. Tom Brady played it 5 weeks ago. We can't.
Yeah. Woo! Now.
Tiger.
We have not seen Tiger play in 5 months. Come on.
No, but during the match, his swing looked good. So you got to figure he's rested, which to a guy of Tiger, that's really important. And also consider, as you said, he owns Muirfield, 9 top 10s, 5 wins, 17 appearances. Now, it doesn't. I understand that new Tiger and old Tiger have met, but they're not the same person. But it's worth pointing out, he finished tied 9th last year, including a gorgeous 67 on the Sunday. So even Tiger 3.0, whatever, post umpteenth back surgery, can play Muirfield and play it. So I'm not saying he's going to win, but would you be surprised to see him finish top 10? I wouldn't.
No. He played a practice round with Bryson DeChambeau, interestingly. Now they have a pretty good relationship anyway, but I'd suspect Tiger was curious, made a point of saying, let's get out there and play together. Woods was saying he's gotten stronger, faster, bigger. He's hitting it further, but let's look at the fact he's hitting it as straight as he is. That was the point Woods was making on DeChambeau. DeChambeau, from his point of view, said on Tiger, even now he's hitting it pretty long. There were a couple he hit 320, 325. I'm like, that's pretty good for his age.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I don't think he was trying to be funny actually, but anyway, there was truth there. DeChambeau, by the way, I just checked. He's hitting between on average 58% and 67% of fairways, depending on the course, which puts him middle of the pack for those who make the cut. So his accuracy really is very, very good. Woods was asked about the Black Lives Matter thing. Should mention that.
Yeah.
He said, I think change is fantastic as long as we make changes without hurting the innocent. I didn't know who he was talking about here.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
You're not meant to know.
Okay. As long as we make changes without hurting the innocent, and unfortunately that has happened, hopefully it doesn't happen in the future, but a movement and change is fantastic. That's how society develops. That's how we grow. That's how we move forward. That's how we have fairness. Unfortunately, we've lost innocent lives along the way. Hopefully we don't lose any more in the future as we move to a much better place socially. That was the
I believe in progress. I believe in faith. I believe in working hard.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a statement for everybody in that. Like, and it's carefully, it's no difference to anything that Tiger will say. But I was the same as you. I read that, and is he talking about, you know, people who've been the victim of police violence? Is he talking about others? Is he talking about?
I wasn't sure because he said, I think change is fantastic as long as we don't hurt the innocent. I mean, you wouldn't think change. Yeah, I couldn't work it out. Who?
Yeah.
So if the innocent is George Floyd in this case, I don't think change is going to harm the George Floyds of the world.
No, but you got to figure that, like, the statement is designed as, Tiger, we need you to say something. Tiger, we need you to say absolutely nothing.
No.
And this statement hit those marks perfectly.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's unlikely he was going to suddenly.
No, absolutely not.
About all this.
No.
Rory, by the way, so no top 10 since the restart. As you said, Peter, Michael Bannon in Florida. He was saying he's taken the club back shut a bit on the backswing. These all sound like very fixable things. And he's due a big week. This course should suit him as well, surely, shouldn't it?
It should do. He's played it a good few times. Jack's tournament, he always likes to be doing well in that. Great respect for Jack Nicklaus. So look, what can we say about Rory? You know, we want him to do well. We think he's going to do well, and then he reverses into a top 10. So he's just as my father would has called me in the past, an enigma.
All right. Has he said that about you?
Has he? But what's he talking about, though?
He's talking about me as he could never understand me. You know what I mean? One week I shoot 66, 65, 68, 68. And the next week I shoot 79, 79 and come home, miss the cut. So you just, you know, you can't just put it, you can't, as somebody who is saying, yes, Rory McIlroy is going to do well this week, you can't say that because you just don't know.
You also can say it, and it's way beyond the purview of Rory McIlroy, because you can make an argument is that the field has never been deeper, so that Rory McIlroy has more consistently good rivals to him than at any other time since he turned pro. There's a series of players, I mean, we've said it many times, but there's a series of players who are not intimidated by him, who admire him, who think he's a brilliant player, and obviously number one in the world. Is he still number one this week?
He is, although 4 different players could take the number 1 spot.
Yeah, it's all a bit whatever. But obviously, look, Rory McIlroy is the man, but there are lots of the men at the moment, and that's it. And so, like, it's great for us. It's not great for a smooth passage to millions more tournament wins and the greatness that he is assured of. But you know. Yeah, I agree.
I was watching the golf on Sunday, and when Justin Thomas started going, you know, his 7 under for whatever, eight holes, you know, I had it in my head, oh, great. I'm going to come on the show and go, that's how you win a golf tournament. Rory McIlroy, look, this is how you win a golf tournament. But he didn't.
Bogey the last 2.
What does that tell you, Peter? That tells you it ain't easy.
Golf is hard.
Oh, trust me. Look.
Did you not know that, Peter? It's actually actually hard.
No. Funny, and I didn't know that.
No. And Martin Slumbers, by the way, of the RNA, came out and talked about Bryson DeChambeau in the Daily Mail, saying that he's full of admiration for Bryson, finds him fascinating what he's doing, but that golf is still a game of skill. So it's an extra, layer to the suspicion that there may be a change of foot. So that's what's going on. I just cannot wait this week to sit back and watch Bryson go at this again. I hope he's in contention.
There's
so
snails
exciting.
that move quicker than the organizations that run golf.
Sure.
But also,
they've been moving this direction for a while, though. You know, to be fair, this is not an overnight thing. So maybe this is the straw that breaks.
But that's the problem, though, Joe. That is the problem. It's not an overnight thing, and it was like the long putter. How long do they take to change that? And they're going to do the same thing with clubs and the ball.
If I was Bryson DeChambeau and I read that comment, I'd be pissed off. It's a little bit insulting. It's
as in he doesn't have skill somehow.
Yeah, it's like, really? Have you looked at my putting stats? You know, I know how to play this game. And what are you talking about?
Think how much skill it takes to hit the driver that long and that straight. You know, for even us chumps hit the driver, like it takes.
Absolutely.
As I'm telling you, he's in the honeymoon period.
With his game or with the general public? Okay, because I think the public are into it. I think people are really interested in watching him.
I've lost my power now in my
we can hear you. We can hear you.
But he's in the honeymoon period in hitting the ball that length.
Okay.
And when it starts going astray, by God, you're going to see Bryson in some places around the golf course.
Oh, I hope. I hope it's this week. Think how exciting this is going to be.
I mean, Bryson, 40 yards left into the woods. Yeah, absolutely. But it's. I haven't felt this energized about golf in general than I have in a long time.
Same.
Yeah.
It's good at the moment, that is for sure. Folks, we've been here a long time for various reasons, technical and otherwise. So let's wrap this up for this week. We will definitely have a hell of a tournament to talk about next Thursday. So we'll get stuck into that. As ever, you can tweet us at Golf Weekly OTB. Fionn, thanks a mil.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers, man. Peter, Laurie, thank you.
Thank you.
We should acknowledge that we lost Nathan, by the way.
Say belated thanks to Nathan Murphy. He had to run off and do other things. But the four of us should be back next week and we'll get stuck into the memorial. We'll talk to you then. Good luck.